Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 60. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, we were just talking off camera. We probably go back to it's almost 20 years, over 20 years, I bet. The late 90s is kind of when we hooked up and started working together. This is going to be a wild conversation. When he introduces himself, people are going to trip because there's a lot of mutual friends that we have. So this is going to be a fun one to get into. So go ahead, name and who you are.
Jeremy Tooley. I'm a father, snowboarder, entrepreneur, and thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. So Jeremy and I go back to this little club called the Embassy, and this place he was a bartender. I bussed, I BA'd, I DJ'd, I did everything at this place, but we go back to this magical time when music was unbelievable. There was a crazy culture back then. The Embassy was this kind of melting pot of so many different characters, and yeah, it was a magical time. I don't know when you look back on that time, when we were in it, we probably didn't know how cool it actually was. And then after the years go by, I can look back and be like, holy hell, that was just a magical little place.
Yeah, I look back, it's all the connections from there and how weird it was. I always brag to my kids, like I had the best jobs in the world. I worked the Source during the day, snowboard shop, and then Embassy at night. So I had the best of both worlds in there. And what I loved about the Embassy is it was like I had the skater friends come into that little bar down below, and then there would be people from the different bars, like Crazy Horse. There'd be preppy people in there. It was like a melting pot of just randomness.
Yep.
And people would get fucking lit. Like
they're just
madness. Going. It was literal madness, and I don't know how I made it out alive. To be honest, it was a lot of people. I don't know how they made it out alive.
Yep. Which probably people think that too, right? They probably came across because I've had a handful of characters from that club on the show now, whether it's Guillermo, Paul, Sid, Rice, you now. So whatever it was, that time period cranked out some unique individuals, and I'm sure there's some people that went to the club and like, how did any of those guys walk out of there and be half successful?
Well, and I see people now. They know, they know my nickname as Rage.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, Rage. And it's like, oh, shit. There's a bit back from the day where nobody knew my name. My kiddos are like, your nickname is Rage? And I got to try to explain to them what that was. It was, a crazy time.
Crazy time. You've seen a couple of these shows before. So I like the guests to kind of go back and tell their origin story. Yours is going to be fascinating because you and I connected. We were in our 20s. Lost connection for, who knows, 15, 20 years. And there's been a lot happening since. So take it back, where you grew up, how you grew up, what you're into, and then we'll weave our way to what you're up to today.
Okay. So I grew up in the Yukon in a small town called Carcross, probably about 200 people. My parents owned a store and like a theater. So the cruise ships would come up from Alaska and drop a bunch of tourists off, and they would go through this whole theater experience. Then we moved to Whitehorse when I was 16. And from there, we moved to Cranbrook, BC. My parents, parents wanted me out of the Yukon. A lot of my friends died, suicide. A lot of my friends were in bad shit, got arrested. So moved to Cranbrook.
Your parents were like, they were willing to just shut everything down and move the family just to give you a better opportunity?
Well, they actually sold the businesses in Carcross. We moved to Whitehorse for a year or two. And then from there, we moved to BC. But they were always entrepreneurs. They always had businesses. They always were doing different things. Yep. So I think it was easy for them. They always put their kids first.
And they probably knew that they could spin up a different idea and get into it again?
Yeah, and I think my dad, we moved to BC, took a regular job. And then I moved to Calgary on my own for high school. Okay. In grade 12, they stayed in BC. They paid for it. They helped out. I was working and went to high school. Then they moved here, and my dad started his own business again at the time. And it was communications, cameras and stuff, and security. But he always had a thing on the go, always something different.
When you decided to move to Calgary, so grade 12?
Yeah, grade 11 actually.
Grade 11, don't know anybody?
Nobody.
And what does that actually look like to come here by yourself at that age and obviously get thrown into high school, which is, can be an intimidating spot when you don't know anybody?
Yeah, I think back then it was easier. It would be harder nowadays, I think, with phones and social media and all this shit. Yep. I think back then it was pretty easy. I was a skateboarder. So I came snowboarder. It was easy to fall into a group who did the same thing. Yep. So I landed pretty good. I met a good group of friends. That took me in pretty quick. Yep. Grade 12 was actually a pretty awesome year for me. Like most people hate grade 12. Mm-hmm. I actually loved it. I met a good group of people, partied quite a bit. It was good. And then after that, moved into my own place My parents left again. They moved to BC. And my sister and I moved into this small place in Brentwood. And I got my first job at, I think it was the Ship and Anchor.
Doing what?
I was a busser.
No way.
Yeah, I was there forever.
Like, to land an iconic job like that, did you know how cool it, like what kind of, again, I don't think we understood how cool these places were back in the day, but.
Yeah, I mean, I was partying there all the time.
Oh, so they just knew you.
Yeah, so they knew
put your
me.
time in.
Yeah. But the better part, so that was my first job. My second job was Republic. And what's interesting, how I got the job at the Republic, I was always there. And I knew the guys who were up in the Deluxe, like Trent and Beats and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And one night I was in the Republic and they were short of a waiter or waitress. It was Cheap Trick who was playing. And Cam was like, do you want a waiter?
Alti?
Yeah, Cam Alti. He's
No
like,
way.
do you want a waiter? I was like, fuck yeah, I'll do it. Like, and I remember Victoria was there. He said, what is going on? Why is Rage fucking waitering, right? And after that, I was just like on the payroll there at the Republic. So
Crazy. You touched on it earlier, just the skateboarding and snowboarding piece. Was that just something you got into in BC? Like, how far back does it go? Because when you and I first met, you were working at the Source and always hang with the snowboarders and skater crew. So it was obviously a big piece of your life. When did you get into it?
grade 7.
Okay.
So it would have been late 80s. And it was back in the day, like 8th Street with a twin tip, like nose and tail. Mm-hmm. In the Yukon, we were skateboarding, snowboarding. It was the black snow. I had the black snow edge and graduated up to the Kemper boards and then the early Burtons, but been riding a long time for both.
And just, was it just a thing to do? Were your friends doing it? Your parents like send you that way, or what was your drive to get into it?
Friends.
Yep.
I think up in the Yukon, there was nothing to do. So we got into skateboarding. That was sort of our common connection, skateboarding and snowboarding. And then when I moved to Cranbrook, it was very easy. And what's weird about Cranbrook, I actually met a really cool crew of people. Jeff Patterson, who's now a famous snowboard photographer, cinematographer, Rob Fagan, Olympian. That was my crew who I rode with. And so everywhere I've sort of gone, I've sort of been with these groups that have come out and been really successful or really cool athletes and stuff like that. So,
do you ever give that any thought?
I do.
Like, why does that, how and why? Like, why did that happen, do you think?
I don't know. I think it was a special time. I think you don't get those opportunities like now. And if you fell into skateboarding, snowboarding, those sorts of things back then, there weren't too many people doing it.
Yeah.
You had a chance to really do whatever you wanted to do and hone your skill and have fun around it. Yep. And I think the industry sort of, if you were in early days, you took off and you could ride that sort of wave. And then you get really good because you're around people who do the same thing.
Yeah. It is interesting that you can actually see the groups that you're hanging with, whether it's the people in Cranbrook, or you get into the nightclub scene and all those people that are successful. So it's funny how it follows you around.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're obviously in the, like we were talking about off camera was when I had Guillermo on the show, we talked a lot about the nightclub industry and just how it can either chew you up and spit you out, or it can give you all these life lessons over all these years, and you start looking back, you're like, holy hell, I had this figured out early.
Yeah.
And now you can apply it to everything you do. So you started getting into it. So it's the Ship first, iconic place, Republic, iconic place. So keep walking me through the club scene.
Vicious Circle, Cherry Lounge. I went Vicious Circle, Embassy, and then Cherry Lounge.
Yeah.
And so like Molyneux and I were at Vicious Circle. We were partying there, and we just went to the Embassy. I think it was from that. And then from the Embassy, I think it was Kier and I that went to Cherry Lounge after that.
Turbide was there.
Right. Yeah. Turbide was there.
Vince was there. Chad was there.
Totally. They all, yeah. And we all went to Cherry Lounge, and it was at that point from Cherry Lounge, I made the choice in my mind. It was like, I'm either going to stay in the club and just party and be one of those old guys who works in the bar industry forever, or I can make a change. Yep. And went to school, went to Applied Multimedia at that point.
And what year were you there?
Was that 98, 97, somewhere around there?
Okay.
No, maybe 2002 actually. I'm dating myself here.
Because I went in 2000.
Okay, so you went before me, and the reason I know this, so I went 2000 as well, because my kiddo was born in 2002. And my ex-wife was a teacher at the school at Applied Multimedia.
No way.
I met her there.
Crazy.
So, Yeah. So that would have been, I would say 2000, 2001 I went.
Yep. So you made a conscious decision to get out of the club life? Because it was exhausting. It could have gone the wrong way.
Yeah.
And just like sucked you into a black hole, and you could still be there or been, not the person you are right now. But conscious decision? Like you just knew that the writing was on the wall as time?
Yeah. I mean, the partying, the booze, the drugs, just every night you stay up till like 4 a.m. and you make good money. Sometimes you make $1,000 a night, but then you blow it all that night before you get home, and it's partying, you get up. It's not sustainable, basically.
Yeah. So the idea of going to school, so the rundown of AMTC, Applied Multimedia Training Center, there was a bunch of characters that went there too, right? Like my good friend Chris Payne. Chris Payne is the first guy that I knew that went there. Snowboarder guy, used to hang with the Mission Boys. I went there. You went there. Grimes went there.
Yeah.
Wes went there. Wes Straub. Like there's so many people that went to this school, and for whatever reason, in the early 2000s, it just spoke to a lot of us.
Yeah, I think the reason I went was buddy Trent Good. He was at Deluxe Lounge, crazy partier. He went there. He got a job in the States right away and making ridiculous money. And so he went there. I think now he's like a VP of Surfline. I think he was at Netflix or something, VP, like went all the way up, right? So you look at that success and you're like, well, I think I can do it, right? I think I can do it all.
But it was a weird school, right? It was like, you learned 12 pieces of software over 12 months. And this was a time when the internet was, if the net started in 94, 95, it's early 2000s, it's still kind of fresh. Photoshop is early, and we figure out it's a good idea. It's weird, right?
Yeah. I think what's interesting to me is all these people went and got creative jobs after that. My first job after that was a porn company.
No way.
Yeah, so
See, I'm going to have flashbacks of your story just because everyone connected with is like, did you hear what Jeremy's up to? And now I remember this.
Yeah.
So get into it.
I met my ex-wife at Applied Multimedia, and we got together at a grad party, and literally 4 months later, we moved to Vancouver. Like that was quick. We met, we moved there, and then we were pregnant with Chloe, my oldest daughter. So we get to Vancouver, and I'm looking, I remember it was in the Georgia Strait. I'm looking for web developer jobs, because back then you didn't go online, you didn't do anything, right?
Like you were going dev first?
Dev first. Yeah, I was a Flash developer. I came out of Applied Multimedia doing Flash because I wanted to be a designer, but I suck, right? So I look up this ad, I see it, I go in for the interview, and I get in there, they didn't say what it was, and I walk into the office, there's cameras everywhere, and I walk in, and they've got a live radio show going on in the back with 2 people having sex, screaming. There's this kid there coding, and I see this like fireball go across. It's like this lit toilet paper going across. Everyone's screaming. I was like, oh God, what is this place? They were like, okay, now you know you're going to be working at a porn shop, cutting up pictures of naked people, and we send out emails a night to get people to sign up. Are you cool? And I was like, what does it pay? And back then it was like $70,000.
No way.
Yeah. So I was at my very first job out of school. I was like, I'm in. I called Sharon, my ex-wife, and said, it's for a porn company. I know, like, we have a daughter coming. And she's like, yeah, take it. I mean, it's money. You got to feed the family. And it was a fun job. The most horrible, like,
I can imagine,
bomb threats coming in, people calling in because they couldn't get their credit cards, like, taken off the subscribe list. The boss was sort of crazy. I had to go pick up half my job was picking up his Lamborghinis and Ferraris in town because he'd meet a girl and driving to Vancouver, and the job was in New West. And it was all over the place. It was great though. Like I learned how to deal with craziness.
Yeah, straight chaos.
Yeah, straight chaos. And then from there, after my daughter was born, I decided like I can't work here, and we opened the record store in Vancouver.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, man, I'm having flashbacks to what you've been up to.
Yeah. So
what are you thinking when you're making that transition? And here's the weird thing. Me just hearing this for the first time, it sounds eerily familiar to how your parents operated.
Yeah. It is 100%. I think at the point of making those decisions, it's always like, I think I can do this. I should do this. My problem that I have is I always think I'm a better creative or a good DJ. I'm not. Like I wanted to DJ. I was horrible at it, but I was very good at selling records and having that business. Like I can get people in to sell records.
Yep.
And then in the meantime, I get to buy records and play records. So have fun.
Yep.
But there's never, like, it's always, I want to be able to buy this to do this,
Yep.
but I'm never good enough. So I eventually just started businesses because I could get people in and make money on it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. So get into the passion around music. You know, again, we grew up in this magical era where the best music you could hear, these DJs would have it on 12-inch. You couldn't buy the CD, you couldn't stream it. You literally had to go to these clubs and hear it.
Yeah.
And we were exposed to this wild music scene. Was that the trigger? And then you just like kept in your back pocket and then decided to do a record store?
It was. So I think Night Gallery, like you had small town DJs, Rice, Dean Clark, like all those nights they were phenomenal.
Yep.
And I think the memories that you have, the people, it was like, I want to be part of that. I want to get into the music, and getting a physical mixtape from people. It's like, here's my mixtape. You take it home and listen to it, or in the car over and over. And I was like, I want to be part of that. I want to be in this scene.
Yep.
And yeah, so sort of fell into that thinking record store, you can make a lot of money. And of course you can't. I can't at all. Right?
But so where was the record store in Van?
So we had one in Lonsdale in North Van, and then we had one in Whistler. Okay. So we actually, of course, how I do business, like start off one is not making money, let's do another one, right? And expanded. And they went well for a year. Yep. But a record costs like wholesale $9, and you sell it for 14. Yep. You have to sell a lot of records, like a ton of records. But it was a good learning experience for business and how to pay people and how to actually not succeed. Yep. And take those lessons and apply it to the next one. So
it's nice to be able to look back and understand that you learned a bunch of lessons.
Yeah.
When you're in the thick of it, what's actually going through your head?
Borrowed a lot of money from my ex's parents.
Yep.
You want to make it work. And I think what I learned then is letting go, how to let go of things. Yep. We learned, like, did the math, there's no way you can ever succeed. And
just all the overhead.
Everything, right? So there was a point, and this was a big lesson that I take forward in everything now is, okay, is it going to be successful in the future? Do the numbers add up? And I don't care if I love it or not. Take the emotion out of it and kill it.
Again, right before we jumped on camera, we talked a little bit about this, but your energy to just go forward, to understand you have one store that's not doing well, but we're just going to go all in and do another store. What is that? How do you describe that? And have you been able to channel that?
I have. So I always see the end goal in mind. And I think the end goal for me with the record stores was having 2 record stores. It wasn't about wealth. It wasn't about money. For my current businesses, I think I always see the end goal and how they'll be successful. I don't look at the day-to-day or the risk involved in losing something. For me, it's just about, I see that success point, I'll get to that, and then worry about the next success point. The day-to-day risk for me isn't there. It's weird to me when I say that out loud. I don't have any risk at all. It doesn't play into how I operate, and that's a weird thing to say. I just sort of see if things are going to be successful or not.
And when you say see, is that like gut intuition's giving you a feeling, or did you actually physically see 2 record stores in different like unique areas? Like what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think I can physically see that. So even like with my business, I know to a point I'm going to be successful. And I think it's getting better. It's a bit of intuition and it's a bit of sort of math now in my head. What is that breaking point? When do you need to get out?
Yep. So what's after the record store? Where are you?
So we exited the record stores, sold one to a partner we had up there and got out of one, moved back to Calgary, had my other daughter. And
what year is this ish?
2003, 2004.
Okay.
A record store was a couple years, I would say.
Okay.
We moved back to Calgary and I got a job randomly. I got a job in California through Spark Art. It was Warner Brothers and Interscope. And I was building websites for Madonna, Linkin Park, Jay-Z, Eminem. And I did that for 2 years.
And doing the dev?
Doing the dev, doing actually some of the creative. So my ex-wife and I, and this is how we actually started an agency.
Fuck, man.
So we started an agency.
We're not going there yet.
So from there, though, I was doing the dev. We were building all these microsites and really worked on some cool stuff.
And this is mid-2000s?
Yeah.
So a lot of hard coding. There wasn't like WordPress. There wasn't any CMS tools yet.
No,
right?
and they built a custom, sort of like a custom content management system.
Yep.
We built one on CSS, and they had this system in place. We would do these microsites in Flash,
Yep.
and so I would pump out 2 of those a week, 2 or 3 a week.
Flash, like most.
Flash, yeah.
Okay. So you had this Flash background, used it for a bit, did the record stores for a bit, and then came back to your flashing.
Came back to the Flash and all that stuff. So
remote, or were you down in California?
no, it was remote.
Yeah, okay.
And the interesting part was, I think I was making $100,000 and working from home back then. So that sort of set off the idea in my head about, and this is great. You can work from home. People trust you. And this was back in the 2000s.
Yep.
So I've always had this mentality of sort of working alone, and people trust you. You can do the work.
Yep.
So doing that, and then that eventually faded out. I forget what it was. I just like knocking out the same stuff, even though it was really cool stuff.
Yep.
Like building Madonna's website, the Jay-Z Linkin Park, that album they had together. I think it was Collisions or something. I forget what it was, but
Crazy.
Built all that stuff. So it was interesting, but at the same time monotonous.
Mm-hmm. So once the shine kind of wears off, you're like, fuck, it's just another website that I'm.
Yeah. So then my ex-wife and I started an agency, and one of our first clients was a diamond broker out of Vancouver, and he paid us in diamonds. So I got the first sort of 6 months of that engagement, we were paid in diamonds, like literally black bags would show up in envelopes at our house, and we would get diamonds, and I'd have to go take them in and get rings made or sell the diamond. Like sketchy when I look back on it now, but really sort of a cool, neat thing that happened.
And the agency play was interesting because that's kind of like I'm doing something similar-ish.
Yeah.
But the agency play was just a combination of your ex's skill set, your skill set, and then just thinking you had a network to leverage, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, so we actually did have a network to leverage. So she was a designer, and I was the developer. I leveraged a few connections I had in Vancouver. I was doing some freelance stuff for some film studios. So I've never considered myself a salesman, but I was reaching out to people and landing contracts and big contracts. For me at the time, we'd land one studio for $100,000, another studio for $100,000.
Yeah.
So, my ex-wife and I at the time were doing $1 million business.
Yep.
And then, after that, we got divorced, sort of collapsed that.
Yep.
We had houses, sold it, and I got into contracting and moved into project management. So PMing, I worked at Shaw and Canna, Synovus. It really sort of honed my skills on managing people.
And then the PM, was it like general projects, or were you doing like IT specific or like marketing things, or just
IT specific? So if I look at in Canna, Synovus, I was managing large IT projects, in charge of capitalized budgets, people, how to manage people, stuff like that.
And did it it's a big swing, right? You're going from like doing your own thing, doing creative things, to then deciding that you're going to like jump in the corporate thing. And
it's good money. I mean, in Calgary's got this culture of consulting. So oil and gas folks, most of them are consultants. They've got their own numbered company. You get paid by the hour.
Yep.
That's just how it works. So I was like, well, there's big money in here. I don't have to pay a lot of taxes. I'm going to do this while my kiddos are, at the right age where I can support them. We can do some fun things. Like at the time too, my ex-wife and I went through a divorce. And so I had the kids 50-50, and I've always had them 50-50, and she had the other half. So I'm like single dad now. I gotta make some money and support them all the way through.
So how long did that stretch work? Like when you were PMing for these big companies?
Yeah, I would say 2008 till 4 years ago.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
It was a run.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was good money. It's funny because I'm not money driven. And I always, when I talk to people or hire people, there's people who are money driven, or there's people who are driven towards experience and like learning and stuff.
Yep.
And I try to pick that out right away. And back then I was always driven towards money. And then the older I got, I wasn't. And now it's funny, I'm not driven towards money. Like I'm driven towards supporting people and building and having the fun and learning. But back then I definitely was driven towards money driven.
So what does that exit look like out of there? Like I want to hear your thought process of, the transition from working for somebody to whatever's next.
Yeah, I think like from where to Xeris.
Well, was there anything in between?
No, I think it was.
Okay, so yeah, this will be interesting. So then get into what you were thinking, why you changed.
Yeah, so I think I've never considered consulting as working for somebody. I think I get to set my own hours, and I've been pretty stubborn about that. So if I'm going in as a consultant, let's say I'm working for one of the big companies in town here, it's my time. You're paying for my time, and I always considered myself an independent. So starting Xeris, which is the consulting company that we have now, or the professional services company, it wasn't a jump. It was more of how can I take this model and scale it for, and hire all my friends basically and provide this service to these companies where I'm doing this now.
So walk through what it is. Because this is, so you decided that you could kind of do the same thing, hire your friends, offer the similar service back into these big companies?
Yeah, so what it is, so we're a cloud professional services company. So we do everything with AWS, Azure, GCP, which is Google.
Yep.
And what I noticed when I was at the companies like, the Encanas, the oil and gas companies, as a consultant, you would see the big companies like Deloitte come in, the big fours, right, of the big consulting firms of the world, charging a lot of money. And at that moment, I was like, there's a lot of money being handed out across teams to people, and there's not a lot of value because I was always on the buy side, right? I'd be engaging these big consulting firms.
Yep.
So at that point, I was like, I think I can do this better. I know I can do this better. And approached two of the guys who are my partners now, Jonathan and Greg. And one of them's a designer, one of them's a builder. So it worked out perfect. Like I can sell, one designs, one builds. And we took it forward and just exploded. Like we started in 2019 and exploded and sold this year.
So, this is obviously a big piece of your, it's the new part of your history.
Yeah.
You've had an extensive, you've had an interesting journey to this moment. So when you get into this, what do you realize you can do something better?
Yeah.
So you're selling, what are you actually selling? Like you going back to these companies and what are you actually doing?
So at the end of the day, people say we're selling products, we're selling development, we're selling people. We sell a higher caliber of people who can come in and actually are specialists. So if we're doing application modernization, which is, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have an app on your phone. You do something with it day to day. We come in, we build those apps, and we move them to the cloud. We make them more cost efficient. We help out companies save money. And so usually their internal teams don't have the skill set to do that.
Right.
So we provide that skill set and we come in and do that for them.
Gotcha. So this is 2019.
Yep.
You have this new idea. I'm guessing you still like all in on these ideas? Like you push everything in, or are you a little more, is there a few more pieces to the equation now? Are you a little less I don't want to say reckless.
Yeah.
But is there a little more thought process into why and how you're going to pull this off?
Yes and no, I would say. So we grew from 2019, 3 people to 150 people at Xeris alone. And then we got acquired in February by a company called Accolade Digital, private equity backed, close to 3,000 people now. So before that happened, I think we would have taken all the risks in the world. And what I want to do in the company is just hire good people, hire my friends, make sure everyone's fed and happy, and make sure everyone's working. I think now we've got a different agenda. It's a bit different when a big company owns you.
Yep.
You have to follow some rules, and I can't go a little wild like I normally do.
Yep.
So
the growth, and this is interesting for me because you started with 3 people.
Yep.
You had all things covered, sell, creative, program, and the dev side, which is great. What starts happening to scale this thing? You've owned a couple of different businesses, and this one you got the tiger by the tail. You got something here. To actually scale it, what does it look like, and what are you thinking? Do you know?
No.
Do you know how to scale these things?
No, I'm not going to lie and say I knew how to scale anything. I think we took a lot of chances. There were times when we didn't know if we had landed a client, we'd hire the whole team. So we hired 6 people, and this is early days, and the client hadn't signed yet. So you're making an assumption that the client's going to sign, and it was coming down to the last minute. And so you've got all these mouths to feed. You've got these people there who don't know that you don't have the client, that you haven't signed yet. And luckily, It just happened. And that was my first like taste of, okay, I've got to take bigger risks to scale.
Yeah.
And then I think it was one day I just realized like, wow, we're at 50 people. How are we getting here?
Like just it literally?
Yeah.
Like it's a little murky from 3 to 50.
It is. Here's the reason why is we were growing so fast and getting new clients, and we hired this amazing people and culture manager, Liz, who really helped us sort of scale. And I didn't see it all happening in the background. And then we just started hiring people, and it got to this point where, every day it was a new number, and some weeks we're hiring 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And it sort of took off on its own, but I had to learn how to delegate and trust that people were going to do this. And then when you get in there, you're like, oh, wow, this is actually happening.
And was it all built on your remote idea?
It was 100%.
Like the entire workforce is remote.
100% remote.
And just, you knew that was the only way to do it?
Yep. 100%.
Just like, didn't want the overhead, didn't, because there's some people out there that love that, the traditional corporate culture, right?
Yeah.
Four walls, floors, people, bodies. It's just not your vision.
No, and I think we're pretty upfront with people. Like we were, again, fortunate. We started the company right before COVID as a remote first company. Then COVID hit, and we had the base to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of took off. And then when we hire people, we get a certain type of person who wants to work remote, who likes that feeling. I think what we're noticing now is as we get bigger, we are missing that place where we can come together and sort of work and hash out ideas and stuff like that.
But
yeah, I think, we are going to get a space in Calgary. It's going to be more of a landing zone. I think the appeal is that remote first and having that trust for people. And
when you go from 3 to 50 and you're like, holy shit, we're here.
Yeah.
What's driving it all? Like what is driving that rapid pace of growth? Is it you going out and hunting for contracts? Is it inbound traffic? Are you building a brand and people are they're like, oh, these guys, I need to talk to them. Like what's actually happening?
I think it's a mix of everything. The people I brought in and hired in Calgary sort of knew everyone. They've worked everywhere. They brought in clients. I was out hunting. We hired a sales director when we were at about 40 people. And at that point, she's gone now, but she brought in a lot of connections, a lot of people. And then we very quickly realized I need to hire salespeople to bring in more and more and get that engine going. Yep. What I notice about companies who don't scale past a certain point is they're very hesitant to bring in salespeople, or they're hesitant to let go and delegate certain things. So,
and not having built this before, not having built something like this before.
Yeah.
What gave you the balls to do it? Like, is it just like you knew this is it? This is your time to like take a swing at it? Or if this thing didn't work out, you're like, it's just I'll figure out the next idea.
Yeah, that's hard to explain. For me, I think I was able to convince Jonathan and Greg to join this journey with me.
Yep.
When it comes to starting businesses, I've never had a problem making money. Yep. And that's one thing I think I learned from the bar industry is I can make $1,000 a night easy. Yep. Business, doing what I'm doing, I can make money. So even if this fails, I can make a lot of money. It doesn't matter what I do, I'm always going to make money.
Yep.
The hard part for me was convincing my other 2 partners because there's no risk in them at all.
Yep.
They're very risk averse. So it's like...
It's interesting.
Yeah. So they had to think about it. They had to have jobs. And I actually quit one of my jobs and just started Xeris. And they were still working and doing stuff on the side with me. But I had no money at the time. And it was like, well, I had money, but I had money saved, but I had no money coming in. But to me, I always know I can make money.
And like that thought process is very, very different. It's like, and we talked about this a little bit, like the no risk thing. Like you just move through life with that.
Yeah. I always know I can make money, whatever I do. I could end up anywhere and I'll find a way to make money. That's always just been how I've operated.
Yep.
I've always known I'll be successful, and whether that's having a lot of money or snowboarding all day long.
Yep.
One of those things are going to come to me. It's never a question of, am I going to fail?
Yep.
I'll just do something else and make more money.
And it's not cocky.
No, it's not. It's yeah. When I say it like that, it sounds cocky.
No. But it's just like it's not though, right? You say it in a way that's just like, this is who I am and how I operate.
Yeah, it's for me. Growing up, my whole life, I've just known I've always been able to. Anything I do, I can make money at, and if I don't, I'll try something different.
Yeah, and you figured that early, like you knew
Very
that
early.
just and that allowed you to kind of bounce around to all and test all these different things and situations.
Yeah, so I guess for me, if something doesn't serve me, I'll leave it. And that sounds selfish, but if something doesn't serve me personally, I'm not learning, I'm not making money, I'm not excited, I'll leave it. And it has nothing to do with loyalty. It has nothing to do with I'm going to stick for a friend, or if it isn't serving me personally, I'm not going to stay. And that, even in the business I'm in now, I think, we got acquired. It's still serving me. I'm still learning. I'm making money. It's there for me. If there ever is a day where it's not serving me, I won't be there. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Which kind of gives you confidence, right? To just keep moving.
Yep.
You'll know the triggers that are going to send you in a different direction once they show up.
Yeah. And they have, it happens to me. Here's the thing too. The triggers happen all the way through a process, and I'll step back and evaluate like, okay, am I still making money? Is that serving me? Is it paying the rent? Do I enjoy the people? Do I enjoy the relationships? Those sorts of things.
Yep.
So
what's been the biggest surprise for you as this machine is kind of popped off? Like,
your friends, you find out very quickly who your real friends are through this process. And when I say that, I've hired a lot of friends at Xeris, and
people that were qualified for specific roles.
Yeah.
And also people that just were good people that you could like mold into something.
Yeah, I think a bit of both. And what I've learned along the way is I've got my vision for the company, and you bring in friends sometimes and they have a different vision.
Yeah.
And what you have to realize is they can leave and go do their own vision, but this is my vision. So I brought you on, you have to stick to my vision. That sort of sounds selfish, I guess, in a way, but for the only way that we've grown and built this is
what you see.
What I see, my vision, right? And if you want to start something else, you've got a different idea, you can go off and do it. And what I found is there are a lot of people who haven't done what I've done who come in and give you advice.
Yeah.
And I've learned not to listen to people who haven't done it before. I listen to the people who have done it before.
Yep.
So,
have you started to find mentors? You know, like, because you've built this big operation now.
Yeah.
And like you said, you don't have all the answers because you've never done this before.
Yeah.
How do mentors, or how does the learning piece fit into all this?
So I've had mentors. I've gathered mentors my whole life. I just reach out to people.
Do you actively go find them?
I do. Yeah.
You know that, and what's your thought process? Like, you need to learn something, you need to figure something out, or you're just, like you said, you're willing to learn from people that have done something that you haven't?
It's a bit of both. I think I see something in someone that I don't have that I appreciate.
Yep.
I actually just hired two of my mentors at Xeris. So they came in, Chief Strategy Officer Manoj, and our Chief Digital Officer Marcy. They've been mentors for the last couple of years of my life. And I was able to hire them on. But when I brought on Manoj as my mentor, I saw like this calm, cool guy who could speak to executives, something I didn't have. Very like professional.
Yep.
I'm pretty crass. Drop a lot of F-bombs. I can be either love me or you hate me. When I see somebody like Manoj, he goes into a room, he really understands how to read the room and how to speak professionally. So I was like, I need that. I need to use that and gain those skills. I mean, I'm not there yet, but he helped me get there.
Yep.
So is it the constant quest for learning that keeps you on this like mentor? No. And here's the thing. I'm not a big learner. I hate it. I take all of my lessons from experiences. I think that's why I like to travel. I like to do shit, and I learn lessons along the way.
Yep.
I think when I see a gap in something I don't have and I need to do that. It's not about learning it. It's like I need to have this skill to be successful, because I won't actively go out, and if I don't need the skill, I'm not going to go out and learn it. But if I need to use it in everyday life for something that's going to serve me and help serve me, then I'll seek it out.
So deciding you need to learn from somebody else is a kind of a big Like, was it a big step for you? Or
No.
you just knew that this person had something? You're like, I need to learn it.
Yeah, I think if I look back on like Marcy and I, or even Guillermo, I look up to Guillermo.
Yeah.
He's got a different skill set. He's got a really amazing business background. He's been through seed rounds, venture capitalists, like things I haven't done. So I'm like, how can I learn from that? How can I take away and help serve me for the future?
Yep.
If I look at Marcy, like Marcy, one of my mentors, her and I just became really good friends. And I think that's a key thing is sometimes my really good friends have become my mentors because they offer so much more than I have to offer. So I can learn from them.
Mm-hmm. Where is this, when you're building something out like this, is your eyes always on like where this one's going to end? You guys got bought. So there's, there could be an end like on the table at whatever time. As you're continuing to work with them and help this thing grow, are you dreaming about new ideas? Is your mind...
Oh, yeah.
Has your mind always been running about different ideas all the time?
Yeah. So what I've learned, like the two guys who I brought on as my partners, Jonathan and Greg, I learned very quickly, I've got way too many ideas and I'm pretty scattered.
Yep.
Typical ADHD. Like can't focus on, one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. So Jonathan he's a builder or designer. So I'll give him an idea and he can go design it.
Yep.
And then Greg can take that and actually build it. What I've learned though is I'm an idea guy. I can't, as much as I can execute, I don't like to execute on them. I'll give you ideas all day long and I'll take a business idea and I just need help executing. Mm-hmm. If I've got the right people, I can make millions all day long.
And it's not, you're like, it's not cocky. It's just like, you just know that. It's just who you are and how you operate. And I just want to be clear. Like, it's not, I'm sitting across from you and I'm not getting this, like, I know how to do it. I can make it's not cocky. It's just, you trust yourself.
I trust myself. I also trust the people around me. So again, I keep going back to like Jonathan and Greg, who I brought on. Without the right people, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I'm confident in the fact that I know the right people and can always bring on the right people to help me build this or build whatever I have in mind. Yeah.
So there's ideas still like left in your head?
Oh, yeah.
And from all over the place, I'm sure. It could be creative, could be tech things, whatever.
Yeah, one of my dream goals would be to open a cat operation, cat skiing business. I catboard a ton, like probably 10 times in the winter. Go to Baldface, go to amazing places. Mm-hmm. I would love to do that. I don't have the experience, so it's like, who could I hire for that? Love to do a winery. I've got some awesome ideas for tech. Like I've got a non-compete for 2 years after if I were to leave this company. Yeah. So I can't do that for another 2 years after, but I've got some great ideas where I see an opportunity to build something really cool.
How do you you just touched it a little bit on that the cat skiing thing. How does and we talked off camera. We talked a lot off camera, but this snowboarding. How does that fit into your life right now? And what do you actually get from it? Besides just like an outlet, like what do you actually get from allocating that much time to do it?
Well, I listed off the three things I am, right? The father first. I think that's the most important thing I do. Snowboarding is number 2 above being an entrepreneur. And I think what it does for me, there was a point I wish I'd gone pro or done all those things. To me, though, it's the getting away, the freedom in the mountain, riding, having fun. I don't think I've never felt anything like snowboarding powder in the backcountry. I want more of it. I want to be doing that every day. To me, that's freedom. Like everyone thinks, you own a business, you sold the business, you got money. Freedom is being in the backcountry with a backpack and a shovel and a beacon, and that's it. Yeah.
Is it how do you manage the non-snowboarding time of the season? And for me, just for context, I ride my bike a shit ton all summer. Like heavy. I'm always on my bike, and it's my time to kind of think and process, plan. So all of a sudden winter shows up and I can't ride. So then I have to scramble and come up with a different thing, whether it's going to the gym or on my trainer. So how do you manage if during the winter it's like your thing?
Yeah.
It provides everything for you. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it keeps your mind at ease, focused, all of it. What do you do when you're not snowboarding?
Wake surf. So we've got a cabin out in Kelowna, and I've been wake surfing with the kids since they've been little. Like one of the things I did way back in the day, I think it was 2012, I bought a boat. Couldn't afford the boat, bought a boat. Like literally could not afford it. But I was like, I'm going to take the kids out every summer. We're going to have that lake life that I didn't have. So we'd take them out. We would do wake surfing every summer out at Mara. And that was 2 weeks of their year. And I was able to buy a place out in Kelowna. And that's what we do all summer. That is
right beside snowboarding?
Right beside. I think I consider them one and the same. It's like I've got that 1 month where I can't board or boat. But yeah, I think it also comes down to I want experiences for my kids. So snowboarding, wake surfing, they all play into wanting that experience for my kids, being a father. Like everything I did tied into that. And they're older now. My youngest is
how old are they?
18 and 20. Dude, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, one's off in university in PI. The other one's moved in with her boyfriend. It's like I've got adults.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got adults.
I wouldn't have you said obviously you were rattling the age that the year when you had your first child, and so I didn't do the math. I'm like, 20, dude.
And what's interesting is so the snowboarding's surfing, every winter and every summer it's always been with them. In the last 2 years now, they've got their lives. So I'm like still wanting to do these things with them. And I think, now I've adjusted my time where I'm going into the backcountry. I'm doing like bald face, and I've actually. What's really weird again is I've been fortunate to fall into this like bald face. I boarded with professional snowboarders up there. And so I've sort of switched crews again, and they're very successful, like from my kiddos to like people who ride all the time and who appreciate this who are my age now. It's this interesting journey snowboarding's taken me on, and it all from parenthood, like fatherhood and everything. So
do you give it much thought? Like, do you think about these things very often?
I have lately.
And why is that, I think? Like, why are you being reflective at this point in your life?
Because my kids are out.
Yeah.
I always think it's like you hear about people who have this midlife crisis, and I'm like, oh, I'll never do that. I got all this shit. The kids move out, and I'm texting my daughters every day. Hey, you guys going to be home? When are you coming home? I've got dinner. Do you want to do something this weekend? They got lives. So it's like now I'm reflecting on all the shit from,
It gets interesting.
Yeah.
Just to... I guess there's probably some uncomfortable pieces, but the common thread of snowboarding, is that the kind of thing that keeps you balanced? Is that your like...
It is, yeah. Snowboarding's been one thing I've always done. It's always sort of kept me grounded.
Yep.
I can get away. I can go by myself. I can go with my girlfriend. I can do these things.
Yep.
It's you can't show up at work and just do work for fun. Snowboarding, I can go whenever I want, just get away and clear my mind. And there's nothing about it. Like it clears my mind of thinking. Like my brain is always running and it's always a fucking idea or something stupid. And I'm like, I need to try this. Where snowboarding, it's just about riding.
Did you know that? Do you give much thought to mental health?
I do. So,
and always, or just as you kind of got mature and...
No, and I don't want to say, I think in my family, and probably every family, there are mental health issues. And I think just recently I've had to adjust to that, to understand what it is and why it is, and how it affects sort of your family. 100% believe in it. I also think, I didn't pay too much attention to it. I think as I got older, and especially when you have kids growing up, right, you see different dynamics and you hear the challenges and the problems. So,
and the snowboarding is kind of this, it's your tool.
It's my tool. Yeah. So
it's the reason I'm on this with you is because I find it very interesting so my thing is like ride my bike and water ski all summer.
Yeah.
And like if I ride my bike, if I ski 50, 60 days from May till September and I ride my bike, I don't know, 100, those are the things that keep my mind in check. And now that I start talking, like when I'm fucking on camera talking more often, right? It kind of forces you to start thinking about these things. So that's been my aha moment. I find when I don't do these things, I get kind of owly. I'm not that fun to be around.
Yeah.
And now I realize it, right? If I'm like in a 2-day funk, work's just kind of doing its thing, and I'm in this like cycle, and I haven't done anything active, then at least I can fix it.
But that's what's serving you, right? Is like the biking, the skiing, all that stuff is serving you and making you as a better person. That sounds sort of cliche, but you need those things to make yourself a better person.
Yep. Yeah, because back then, like when you and I first met, and you were like a snowboarder, skateboarder guy, right? And you're just like, it's just, it was a thing you did back then, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward, I obviously had no idea that it was just this common thread that is not leaving.
Yeah.
The idea of mixing your passion to business to pull off like a cat skiing operation of some sort, does that get awkward?
Here's the thing. I think that, I know that's a dream. Sorry. That's a dream for me. I can never pull that off. I think the skill, the expertise, everything you need to have to run that, it would just be like, it's one of those things that's like a passion. I'd love to do it, and I'm a great business guy. But when I go out to somewhere like Fernie Wilderness or Baldface and I see the work and the amount of work that you have to do and the dedication and the certification, it's like, I only see the fun side of it. I don't see the actual business side of that. And it would probably be something that would actually drive me away from ever doing business again, because I think it's my passion. And if I were to ever do that, it would kill that passion as well.
Yeah. You can't put the two beside each other.
Yeah. So that's like, everyone's got their dream of like owning a bar in Mexico, or for me, it's like a cat operation. I wouldn't do it because I know it would wreck everything for me.
It's been really cool, man. You and I, we've been trying to connect to get on the show for months now. So
yeah,
I'm glad we could actually pull it off. It's an interesting time for you, I'm sure. I end the show with one question.
Yeah.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Oh, vibrant city. I think this city's got a lot of grit. There's a lot of cool stuff happening here in tech, in energy. It's such a fun city. I always wanted to leave Calgary, and now I don't want to ever leave. I love coming home.
What was that driver to get? Sorry, we're not getting into it yet. What was the driver to? You felt like you just outgrown it. Your circle was kind of burnt out. Like, what was it that you were just like?
Everyone, when they're young, wants to leave. They want something different. My biggest joys now, like I came home from Croatia, was seeing Calgary, flying over Calgary, and it's like, I'm home. This is it. Yeah, it's everything.
Thanks for taking the time,
Jeff. Thank you.
I am pumped to stay connected with you now, just to watch what you're up to. Now that I have insight of how you operate and what you think and how you think, I think it'd be really cool to watch what you're going to pull off. So thanks again.
Thanks, Jeff.